Thanks for checking out our podcast. If you are interested in learning more about writing, go check out our syndication page, seriouswriter.com, where you can find resources, articles, videos, topical classes, and the Brew and Ink podcast. Again, seriouswriter.com. We thank you for listening.
All right, and welcome everyone back to another Brew and Ink podcast.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We're going to be singing a lot in this episode.
Oh, yeah,
right?
we are going to be singing a lot in this episode, I think, just to warn you guys.
I might not be singing, and that's okay.
The reason for this declarative statement is that we're going to be talking about musicals today. Our favorite musicals, the ones we grew up watching, the ones that have inspired us the most, or just ones that we listen to every day for a year or two. You know, I don't know if anyone else has done that.
And then we might just randomly break into song while in the middle of it. We're going to talk about musical.
You always have to have a musical episode.
Yeah, we do.
So before we started recording, we were talking about Community because that's what we do. And they had that one episode where they were basically riffing on Glee, the show.
Oh, yeah. They've had a couple of those.
And like Glee was like a drug, basically. And he was like seducing people into being on the Glee Club. And that was pretty funny.
We're not going to try to do that today.
No, that's not what's going to happen here. We're going to talk about how musicals can utilize, or at least good musicals utilize storytelling, not just within the dialogue, but through the music as well. So the music is good, but it's the storytelling that's cohesive throughout the whole thing that makes it so memorable or, heart-wrenching or, whatever.
Yeah. And what's kicking this off for us is that we like the musical Hamilton. Very much so. Everyone has seen it, and it has been revolutionary in so many ways. So we're not going to really talk about Hamilton, but we're going to take that cue and just start talking about musicals in general, because there have been so many good ones over the years.
Yes.
And the good ones, not only do they have good music and good lyrics, but they have a good story, and then it all, like you're saying, it all works together. Yep. And a lot of people, I don't think, realize how difficult it is to do all of that well and for it to come together and make something amazing.
Right.
I just think that's incredibly difficult to do, to have good script writing, good music writing, good lyric writing, and then it all just meshes. I think it's really difficult.
Yeah, definitely not the easiest. And then we're also going to segue after that into our undertaking of working together as a team in our story, and Katie has brought with her today the next chapter.
Is she going to sing?
Is she going to sing her episode? Heroes.
We'll do a little improv tonight. Yeah. You guys have to snap after the end of every sentence.
It's going to be all a cappella. Britt and I are going to be laying down the bass line.
Yeah. Did you bring your drum?
I did not. I did not bring my drum.
She's just going to read her part of the story.
Yeah, she will read.
And we'll get there, and I'm excited to hear all that. But yeah, let's get into what we were talking about earlier, which is the intro song to a musical, and how important that can be in setting up not just the story, but the characters. And the good ones establish really well where did the character come from.
Yep.
And what do they want, or where are they going?
Yeah.
And Katie, you're saying that's called the want song.
The I want song.
I want. Yeah, that's what they called it in that documentary I was telling you about. As he said, there has to be an I want song.
Yeah.
And I watched a documentary on Disney Plus about Howard. I forget his last name, but he
wrote,
duck. Yeah, no. No, he wrote the lyrics and had a lot to do with the story structure part of Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast, which totally kicked off a whole new era for Disney of success, which led to Pixar, which led to all that stuff with Disney. And just he had that. He said, look, there has to be an I Want song at the beginning. And
those are all pretty much musicals.
They are musicals.
Yeah.
In fact, for me, we're going to talk about our favorite musicals. I think Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite musicals of all. It's one of the best written musicals ever.
Yeah. No, and I could agree with you. I would love to dive into that right now.
So even though it was written for an animated movie, I think it's one of the best written musicals because I think that opening song, although they all three have great opening songs, Part of Your World is amazing. But I think that almost operatic like beginning of Beauty and the Beast where it's just like they're talking and they're saying
they're not only introducing you to Belle but the village, the townspeople that she's grown up with and is around, and how she feels like there's more to, you know, what she could be experiencing in life, and the only way she's able to kind of experience that is through these books. And this is all explained within song.
Yeah, and Gaston is in there.
Yeah.
And, like, he's got his little thing.
Right, they establish conflict.
They establish basically the whole conflict of the whole movie, or what she wants and the whole desire of the movie.
Yeah.
And the antagonist to that to some degree. And so I just think it's one of the best opening songs ever. There are a lot of great opening songs for musicals, but for me, that one in Beauty and the Beast is one of the best written, and musically it's amazing. Like, I don't think people realize how musically complex that is.
Right.
Like, it's complex. It's got great
catchy.
themes. It's catchy.
I'll wake up in the morning to it, just singing it in my head. No.
Yeah, but it's not a pop song, right? It's got its own kind of flow to it. So I think it was a genius song. But yeah, I think the opening song, just like the opening part of a book, like you want something that's going to grab you. And sometimes great books take 50 pages to really get moving. And, you know, Tolkien has to take 200 pages to talk about green trees. And you know, that didn't hurt him, obviously.
I like green trees. Okay.
So anyway, I think a great number at the beginning, Summer Nights from Greece. I mean, I don't know how you get better than that.
Right.
Or Summer Lovin'.
Summer Lovin'.
Yeah. So all of that.
Kitty, do you have a favorite that you've gravitated towards kind of all your life, or like maybe even recently?
Favorite musical or opening song?
Either one.
Oh, yeah, either one.
Gosh, I don't know. This is so difficult. It's like I haven't seen any musicals, but then I start counting. Well, I've seen a couple in theater, and then all the Disney movies and a couple of Don Bluth movies. So, I think Les Mis has the most sentimental value to me. I saw Les Mis for the first time at the Queen's Theatre in London on a school trip, and it was incredible. I had never seen anything like it. I'd listened to the soundtrack a couple times before, I think the anniversary recording, and but man, like that was my first big theater experience too.
Yeah.
And nothing could prepare me for the experience of seeing everything and like being there and kind of part of the crowd, like the crowd of characters, even as the stage characters walk in and through the audience onto the stage. And then just seeing it in person was incredible. And at the time I had a crush on the guy, and he didn't, the trip was kind of weird, but like I sat next to him while I was watching this, and then when Eponine is dying, like, man, I was Eponine, and my high school crush, who didn't know about it,
had no
was
idea.
Marius, and I was trying not to cry throughout the whole thing. And so, but just, man, it was so good. And the movies bring, and each of even the stage recordings have their own qualities, pros and cons, but nothing quite captures the magic and thrill of seeing something like that in person.
Yeah.
And I really love Javert. He's my favorite character. He's not a good character. He's not a good guy by any means.
But he's conflicted enough that you're like, he wants to do the right thing. He thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah. And how they presented him in the stage production was really cool.
And when he finds out he judges himself as not doing the right thing, he takes his own life.
Oh man, it's so tasty.
It's so good. So one of my favorite viewings of Les Mis was my cousin's high school performance of it, where he was Javert.
Okay.
And it was so well done.
Nice.
Like, so well done. And there's just some really powerful numbers in there. Like, when you're just belting them out or singing them out, you feel it as a part of the audience, even when you're listening to it. But, like, you know, when Jean Valjean is asking, like, who am I? And he's, like, confronting the idea of who he has been, who he wants to be, and, like, who he's being forced to be within society. And then he, like, you know, reveals himself to be truly the man that they're after. And in that moment, he's just, like, calling out, I'm 24601. And,
yeah, it's so good.
oh, and then, yeah, and there's just some really good numbers in there. Like, even Cosette, like, her first number when she's being sent to go to get the
Castle
water
in the
from the
Sky.
well. Yeah, and the castle in the sky. Like, they established such a childlike purity in her in that moment. Like, she's just this little girl. She doesn't get to stay with her mom. She's being watched by these people who are horrible and make her scrub and clean and do all this stuff all day. And she's being told to be sent into the woods by herself. And luckily, in the midst of it all, she runs into Jean Valjean, who ends up helping her out. It sets great mood and great character development, because then you get to see her grow up. And all the self-sacrifice in that musical is just on point.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. And I just want to make one comment about Andrew Lloyd Webber being a part genius, or at least finding a loophole in musicals, because he didn't have to work with a lyricist or a book writer. He just wrote everything. He just, everything's a song.
Right.
It's like in that, like, that's not only Les Mis, but in Phantom of the Opera's like that too. It's just all song.
Right.
So it's like,
And before we move on to that, just in regards to singability, Lovely Ladies is very easy to turn into lullabies for sleepy children. Sleepy baby, time to go to bed.
yeah. You know this from experience?
Oh, yes. But Andrew Lloyd Webber. So you say in Les Mis and Phantom, everything is a song, which is kind of backward from kind of the popular quote where when a character can't express what they're feeling in word, they go to song, and when they can't sing what they're feeling, they go to dance. And so that just elevates the emotional impact of something.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
Les Mis is more like an opera in that regard,
Yes,
where
yes.
everything is sung.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that was why I think it's borderline genius, especially Phantom of the Opera, which was a story first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the movies in the 70s, but he made it into a literal opera, a more modern musical sort of opera. Yeah, right. There's some amazing songs. As far as Les Mis is concerned, that, and I have said this a million times, I've shared it on Facebook several times, but that scene with Anne Hathaway, and it's just her face, and she is singing that song, is one of the most Oscar-worthy whatever scenes ever. And it's not even well sung, it's just pure emotion.
The song itself is such a good expression of dreams not met, or how things will fall apart in life just as time goes by. Les Mis is one of the ones that I listen to, like, every day. When I was driving, it would be in my car, and I'd be listening to it for like a year. Like, no joke. It was just always in my CD player.
So the top 3 musicals that I would pick, I'm going to pick one that's a classic musical.
Okay.
Which is Guys and Dolls.
Okay.
There are parts of that musical. It's not a great, like, written musical and story throughout the whole thing. It's definitely got its slow moments, in my opinion, as a movie. And that's basically because of the movie. But I think Guys and Dolls is an amazingly well done musical.
I need to listen to that.
And some of the songs are amazing. I mean, one of the most popular songs, it could just be a hit song when anybody does it. Whatever. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. It's just really catchy stuff and really well written stuff. And then I already said there's one that's animation, which is Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I would that I would mention is Singing in the Rain, which
Mm-hmm.
which was basically written and put together as a movie. Like that was
Yeah.
never a stage thing. They took a whole bunch of popular songs
Yeah.
from the 40s and 50s and then made a musical out of that.
Oh, gotcha.
I didn't know that.
I didn't
So
know
those
either,
were
yeah.
all pop songs from like the 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
Cool.
and they made a whole musical out of it with, you know, all the great actors and actresses, the performers that was in there, Gene Kelly and all those guys, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But those three are three of my favorites to watch as far as movies are concerned.
Have
But
you seen Singing in the Rain in person?
I have not.
I saw it at the Aurora Theater.
Oh,
And
nice.
it was so much fun, but just the thing that I always think about with that movie is they actually made it rain on stage.
What?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
they'd put in pipes overhead, and in front of the stage they'd made a gutter.
Mm-hmm.
So they start the number, and then it just starts raining as they're doing their song and dance, and then it goes to intermission and they sweep the water off. But just seeing that,
That's so
that's
cool.
the last thing any of us expected to see.
That
It was
is-
brilliant.
Yes.
But I think even though I do like some movies that were made as musicals, like I said, like they didn't exist before they just made the movie,
Right.
like Beauty and the Beast and stuff. I do think that there is something special about seeing a live performance. There is something about it's
Yeah.
why you go watch bands that
Yeah.
you've got the recording at home, but why do you go see the band? Because there's something about that energy live.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the musical. There's something about that performance energy that really, if they do it well, I mean, you get sucked in, and it becomes this nostalgic, emotional moment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
even it goes further than what you see on a screen.
Yeah, I've seen Fiddler on the Roof live. When we were in Alaska, they had a theater up there that would put on good productions, and yeah, it's just you can watch the movie over and over again, but when you see it live in person, it's something different. It being there in the theater with the crowd and the energy, and then like seeing how they pull off cool stunts. Like when we saw Hamilton live, like seeing that platform spin around and everything,
Love
and the
it.
things moving, and you're like, wow, this is like not only operatic and whatnot, and within the singing, but like within the movement and the dancing. Like there are characters that aren't characters. They're just background dancers that represent things like a bullet.
Oh, the bullet's my favorite.
Yeah, and different things like that you don't get just from the audio. But when you're watching it, you're like, oh, wow, there's even depth here. But yeah, Fiddler on the Roof is one of my favorite.
Really?
Grew up watching that with my mom.
Oh yeah.
And you know, just like
Did your mom love musicals?
yes, so
Because that's where I saw all mine.
she
My mom
introduced
loved
me to, you know, Little Shop of Horrors
them. Oh,
and Fiddler on the Roof, Phantom of the Opera. So those are the ones that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And like Fiddler on the Roof, where if what would you say? If money is a curse, then I hope God strikes me down with it and I never recover. But being able to experience story and character development, even the emotion there that you almost don't get through just reading, there's an extra level of that emotion that punches when
Yeah.
you've got the orchestra, you know, swelling behind this character that's belting out their heart, and it cohesive with the story at the same time, and you're just like, oh man, like, yeah, I get it, I'm there, you know.
yeah. My mom loved musicals, so I grew up. My dad had me watch war movies and westerns.
Yeah.
And other classic movies, but mostly westerns and war movies. And my mom was like comedies, but mostly musicals.
Mm-hmm.
And both of my parents loved Elvis movies because they remember going to the theater and watching Elvis movies. You know, when that's back when he was
Back in the day.
He'd make one every 6 months, and
Right.
then they put out one of the songs as a hit and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, all that to say is, so I watched tons of musicals growing up. You know, Oklahoma, all of the classics, all of the My Fair Lady. We watched everything. And then, of course, my mom is a very talented singer, actually. She's very good. And my dad's pretty good, too. And so we're a very musical family. So musicals for us were just a natural thing to get involved in because we love the singing and the music and all of that. Grease is a classic, but everyone would say Grease. I mean, that's
Right.
why I'm picking the three I'm picking because
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't think, oh, the Beauty and the Beast is actually just a great musical. Like if you were
Right.
just to sit down and do a musical,
Mm-hmm.
it's perfect in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like it's a perfect musical.
You know what I think? Which musical I think translated really well into a movie? If you didn't want to watch the stage production of it, you just want to watch the movie. Is Sweeney Todd? They had a great cast. They
Did have a great cast.
They had great singing to it, or at least from what I remember. It's not. There wasn't anything off-putting. Like the most recent Les Mis, there was a lot of singing in there that was off-putting to me.
Yes, it was. Yeah, there was some bad
The
singing.
timing of the way they did things, but Sweeney Todd, I think, is really well. Now it's more of a dark, macabre kind of musical. So it's got to be in your taste, in your wheelhouse. But that's one I would recommend. There's a couple songs in there that I have in my playlist that I just they'll come to head. And I want to listen to that. Like when he starts singing about. These are my friends, see how they glisten. It's noteworthy. And then, of course, so I'd say Sweeney Todd, Little Shop of Horrors for me, because that's just on its own.
It's its own
campy.
thing. There is
it's
nothing
funny.
like it, in my opinion. It was like it took Grease.
Feed me, Seymour. Yeah.
It took Grease and a monster movie, like a B-level monster movie, and the mashed
them
that was
together.
perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah, and then of course, the one that I need to go see that I've heard about and I haven't is The Lion King. And Katie, you were talking about this too.
Yeah, this is one that I've been dreaming of seeing since like I was 10. And so I've only listened to the soundtrack and just it's incredible. I think just from listening to the songs, it's exemplary of how a story can and should be adapted. Disney, if you're listening, pay attention. Instead of rehashing the same story, the Lion King musical adds more, and it tells the same story from a few different perspectives. You hear songs from Nala and the lionesses, in addition to Simba's perspective. It's more encompassing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell the same story. It augments it. It tells its own story through the new music and then whatever magic they're doing on stage with those unbelievable costumes.
Oh yeah.
And puppets, the puppetry and everything.
Well,
Yeah, some of my favorite songs from the Lion King story are in the musical. I can't sing any of them for you, but like Shadowland is really good, and He Lives in Me, and He Lives in You, so good.
I think I know what I'm listening to on the way into work tomorrow.
There we go.
Yeah,
It's probably a good place for us to get into our own
Musicals.
story. I think the best part of a musical is the fact that if you want to, you can take the album with you either on your phone or in your car, and you can still experience it. And it's in a different, just audible platform. And I think that's one of the beauties of it. It's what makes all the Disney movies so memorable and Frozen and all that. Like, they're big because of the songs that are in the story. Moana, written by the guy that did Hamilton. Lin-Manuel. Yeah, that's why it's so
Very good songs
Yeah.
in Moana. I really like those songs.
Yeah. And for every cheesy musical episode that's done in a daytime TV show, there is a good actual musical. So some people are just like, oh, musical. Bleh. You're like, no, they're really good storytelling.
One of my favorite musicals. I'm not saying it's one of the best, but one of my favorite musicals is the musical episode of Scrubs. Which is one of my favorites. The fact that they did a whole musical episode was amazing.
nice.
It was nice. It was very well done.
And now we will segue into our musical episode. Katie, we forgot to tell you. This is a musical. No, I'm just kidding. So
We're gonna do a couple
No.
shooby-doos and doo-wops while you're
Shooby-doo-wop.
No Western is complete without a campfire song, right?
exactly.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Well, I'll work on that one next time I write.
All right. Well, without further ado, we will get into episode 5 of Hero is a 4-letter word.
Chapter 5. Trouble. There were certain things time could erase. The memory of friends' faces, nimbleness of body, the boldness of youth. Kelly had lost a lot to time over the years, but one thing it hadn't taken was cold instinct. After decades of practice, some things were just etched deeper into sinew and bone than mind. Arthur lay gasping on the ground, and Black Claw paced with eyes wide. Instinct met Callie, and she looked first for cover, then for Elijah. Her arms were strong still from handling the ranch and her herds, and she pulled Arthur back around the corner of the sheriff's station. "Miss Callie, please," he hissed, but she didn't let go until she had Arthur sitting upright against the building. "You ain't never been in a gunfight, have you, Morris?" Callie ignored the blood streaming from her own arm as she pulled her scarf from around her throat and pressed it hard against Arthur's wounds. She felt a bullet shift under her hand, or maybe it was a piece of rib. "What were you thinking?" she continued, not letting Arthur get a word in, even if he could have. "Nothing, that's what. Too busy playing children's games to even consider that the other side ain't." She fixed him with a cold eye, narrowing her gaze further when she saw how much color he'd lost already. "That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen somebody do. If you survive this, you better learn real quick how to use that head of yours and not get yourself shot." Arthur rolled his head back and flashed a weak grin at the old woman. "You got shot too." "That ain't the same and you know it. Hold this here." She lifted his hands and pushed it firmly against the scarf. "Where you going?" Arthur called as Callie stood. She swiveled her gaze away from Black Claw, pacing between the bodies in the street, toward Arthur. "I'm going to get you some help." Callie left him there, though he could hear her hollering at someone as the haze of shock washed over him. He was conscious of another man coming to help, and then the doctor, but the old rancher didn't return. She was right, he thought. Playing hero was a fool's game. But he'd saved her, and that counted for something. Doc Bennett closed the door to Arthur's room, his narrow face drawn and tired. "We'll find out by tomorrow morning if he'll make it, and then after that it's working and praying to keep any infection at bay," he said, catching Callie's cold gaze from across the room. He opened his hand and showed her a bullet lying in a stained kerchief. "Found this one between a couple of ribs. Another one bounced off, superficial wound, not deep. The other... I don't know where the other one is, but I've done what I can to patch things up. I'll be by tomorrow to check in on things." Callie stood and reached out to shake Bennett's hand. "Thanks, Doc. You've always been a good aid to the people in this poor town. I'll pass on how helpful you've been to Sheriff Morris once he's awake." His lips twitched into something like a grimace, and he busied himself tucking the handkerchief away. "It's awful kind of you to put him up at your place, though I wonder at you not leaving him back in town. It would be easier to tend to him there." "I understand you're not from a ranching background, Doc, but out here we don't leave our wounded out where the wolves can devour them," Callie said. "And without his own folk to house him, town's getting awfully full of wolves lately. It'd be a shame if the town's last standing lawman were to fall prey to them, don't you think?" She watched as Doc Bennett's grip on his satchel tightened. He straightened, stood tall several inches above her, and met her square in the eye. "I'll have you know, ma'am, that I took an oath to heal the sick and do no intentional harm, neither with poison nor knife nor neglect, and I aim to hold that true as long as I live. I'm not partial to Mr. Whitaker and what he's doing here, but I will not kill a man for him." Callie studied him for a long moment before releasing him with a nod. "You're a good man, Bennett. I appreciate your help. Now, be careful out there. I'd hate to see your casket in the graveyard." An easy smile made itself comfortable on her craggy features, and Doc Bennett relaxed as best he could. "Well, that's all, Doc. I'll have Cecil escort you down the road." "Thank you, Callie. I'll be calling by tomorrow morning." She waited until Cecil and the doctor were down the road before stepping out into the crisp night air. Her boots crunched through dry ground and brittle plants, thirsty and waiting for the winter rains. On the hills surrounding the ranch house, the viajeros bellowed and called to each other as they moved in off the mountains. She could see the campfire in the distance as her men rested for the night before pushing in the stragglers and heading the Sarians home in the morning. It was a good sight, and once they'd accounted for every animal, they'd begin sorting and thinning the herd for market. It was hard work, good work, and the gunfight just this morning was a reminder that Callie's place was here, among the dirt and beasts and the rough company of the Sereros. She'd given up shootouts for a reason. given up her warring and fighting years ago. Her arm ached with the stitches Doc Bennett had seen to, and she found herself praying Arthur Morris would get up and be moving soon. Whitaker was his problem, not hers. Not yet, and she needed it to stay that way. Black Claw paced in his stall at the far end of the barn. He made the Crashers nervous on an ordinary day, but with the stench of blood on him and his restless energy, they were crowded at the far end of the paddock. Callie whistled a sharp 1-2 note as she entered the barn, and she heard the Salvaje pause a moment before continuing his pacing, even when she came to a rest outside the stall door. "I don't think you and I will be welcome in town for a while after today," she said. Black Claw's jaws opened behind the muzzle as he panted. The striped Salvaje had killed a man today, and she'd left it to the town to clean up the mess. It wasn't anything like brains blown out of someone's skull, but the fact that her animal had ripped someone's arm off tended to have a way of reinforcing certain views of the species. Despite getting shot, Black Claw had done well, and Callie didn't have any regrets about taking him. It would be a shame to lose him as a mount for the time it took for that wound to heal proper, but Saurians were made of stern stuff. Tough folk, hard to put down. Black Claw bumped his nose against Callie's hand, and she scratched his jaw, enjoying what felt like the first quiet moment of the whole day. Too soon, though, the Salvaje's head lifted and turned attentively toward the door. "What's that, kiddo?" Callie followed his gaze but saw nothing amiss. "Something got your ear?" She reached through the stall to stroke Black Claw's neck, but he didn't settle. Humming low in her chest, Callie gave her Saurian a last pat and patted down the barn. The Crashers were racing in their paddock, barking their strange chirrup in alarm. Again, Callie didn't see anything until she turned her gaze to the hills. The campfire was out. The pop-pop of gunshots echoed faintly, and, nearer, the bellow of the horned viajeros. The Crashers jumped in surprise. Black Claw shrieked from the barn, and over the crest of the hill, storming toward the farmhouse, the crests and horns and heaving bodies of the viajero herd gleamed in the firelight.
And very nice.
Very well done.
So-
I liked it.
I think the worst part about your writing is that it doesn't keep going. I just want to listen.
Agreed. I
Over and
agree.
over more. I'm like, wow,
It's a great voice. He's got a great voice to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very well done.
Which we were just saying, like, I really like the way that you brought it back to like Callie being. I want to get back to my ebb and flow of what I'm in now. Like, this is what moves me. This is what I want to be a part of. I've left that behind, the fighting and all that. It's not what I want anymore. I want to, parsing out the herd, getting things ready for market. She's like, this is what I want now.
She's got duties there now.
Yeah. I think this is the episode where we've had a lot of focus on the Saurians. You talked about Black Claw, you talked about her Crashers, you talked about the herd, you talked about the stampede at the end. So it was really good because it gets us back to kind of highlighting those things.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old is really into dinosaurs right now. So we went on a little drive-through tour they have here in Georgia where you get to drive past all these animatronic dinosaurs outside. Well, on the way to and from there, I had them listen to our stories. And I was trying to tell him, I was like, okay, the dinosaurs in our stories are the Saurians. And, the little sound effects that they could hear with like the dinosaurs growling and all that. So he was getting into it. But at the same time, I'm like, it's so creative in this world that we're developing here. It doesn't just come across as like dinosaurs, for kids. And so I think you did a great job at kind of pulling that out and seeing it, in your mind's eye or in the description.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. I like your little thoughts of hers and just kind of her phrases and stuff. You did a good job. The voice is really good. It was good.
Yeah.
And she kept him alive. She kept Arthur alive.
Mhm.
So,
Well, so did our listeners, because they didn't vote for death.
well, that just means I can blow him up. Is blowing someone up a viable option?
We're gonna write it on there for them. Half of the board's gonna be blowing something up when it comes to.
He's in Callie's house
Well,
where we last left him.
accidents happen.
Oh man,
Little did she know,
the VR.
she
the
laid him on the stick
Viajeros
of dynamite.
I wrote a whole
are
paper on it.
laden. Yeah, the Viajero herd is laden with dynamite, nitroglycerin.
Yes,
They come into
they're
contact
sweating.
with anything, and
Yep.
boom.
I did a whole. What does he say? I did a whole thesis on Little
Yeah.
Did He Know. What
yeah,
does he
yeah,
say?
yeah. Little did he know, I did a whole thesis on Little Did He Know. That's funny. And little did you guys know that tonight we have been drinking on some Still Fire O'Farrell's Irish Red, which has got a nice,
I like
beautiful
it.
color to it.
Mild coffee taste, not quite as stout.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, palatable.
Palatable. And then we also had some homebrew made by
I really liked your
myself
homebrew.
It was
and
really
my
good.
friend.
I really liked it.
And we're not just saying that because
No, we're
you're
not.
sitting.
I'm
in
sitting
front
here.
of
Well,
us.
thank you guys. It was a Hefeweizen. We call it the Hefe.
Yeah.
So the boss
Yeah.
Hefe.
Sure. Yeah.
But the thing I like about Hefeweizens is that they have they're more on the fruity esters
yeah.
within the taste palette. So it's got that clove and banana that's accentuated from the type of yeast that you use, and it's not really hoppy like this other 420 strain Mango Kush Wheat Ale. Is those IPAs and whatnot? They're really tasty, but they're really hoppy. So when
Yeah.
you're not in the mood for hops,
Yeah.
it's just not what you want. And I feel like this is a very, very palatable summer beer, having the Hefeweizen.
Yeah, it was really good,
It's
man.
nice.
Very
Thank
well
you
done.
guys. Thank you.
You haven't made beer in a while, and I was
We
really
haven't,
excited
yeah.
that when you said you had made some, I was
Yes.
really excited.
And we also made a chocolate stout.
That's what I thought we were having.
That we're aging a little bit longer because we from doing it so many times, we've learned that those type of definitely when it's because it's a higher gravity beer, they mature really well when you let them age a bit longer. So right around October, I think we're gonna be busting that one out.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good marketing. You're just making me wait for it. You're
Yes,
just making
exactly.
It's good marketing.
It's building up
It's
the-
like
the-
it's like the teaser before the teaser,
Yeah.
right? It's like the
Yeah.
teaser trailer before the trailer, what they do now for
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah,
That's
Have
yeah.
what
y'all
you're
had
doing.
my blueberry wine?
No,
I made blueberry wine a couple years ago.
I knew you made it, but I never
Yeah,
had
I
it.
pulled it off the dregs a little late, so it's a little vinegary,
Oh yeah.
but that gives it a really nice snap.
Okay.
So I think you'll have to wait for this year's brew to finish. But I'm doing
What are you people doing to me? You gotta wait for the chocolate stout. You gotta wait for the
and,
blueberry wine.
need to make room in my freezer for the muscadines that are going to be coming in soon. But I do wild yeast wines, so I don't add any yeast to mine. That's a nice
Oh, okay. Yeah, wild yeast is a great
local
way.
terroir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one never knows what one will get at the end of the time.
Yep.
But that's kind of the
But
adventure
it's always
of it.
authentic to the area.
That's good.
That's cool. We haven't experimented with any wild yeast yet, but I know there are some craft brewers like Dogfish Head that experiments with that as
Yeah.
well.
Good.
So yeah, that's what we've been drinking on throughout this episode, and
So what are
you
they
guys
what are they
can-
going to vote on?
They are going to vote on a couple different options, and we are
We need to bring out the wheel of fish.
the wheel of fish.
I don't get that reference. But
UHF. Weird Al Yankovic.
The wheel of fish.
Welcome to the wheel of fish.
Now, do you find that in Spatula City? Okay, and now for references.
There's a whole bunch of young
Yeah.
people who are like, "What are you talking about?"
What are you saying?
Weird Al Yankovic, UHF. Just rent it, watch
you
it.
can- yeah,
if you can get a hold of it,
Watch it.
yeah.
All
I,
right.
I bought the Blu-ray just to treat myself.
Nice. You got to bring that over.
Yeah,
All right, first spin. We have not written in here, blow them up. Oh gosh, but that does say death. I mean, we
look,
had
I
that
keep
last
voting
time.
for death, so maybe we'll get one.
Right? Okay. Okay, and then
Death
next
and
oh, antagonist.
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 yeah, let's
Yeah.
do death and antagonist.
Okay. Very nice. And you
I could combine those.
On top of death or antagonist, you got to wrap up that stampeding herd that's coming in at the beginning of your episode. That's definitely going to
Maybe
be
they'll run into a train and blow
problematic.
them all up.
But there is no train yet.
I know. I'm just messing.
If Whitaker had his way, there would be a train.
If he had his,
Yep.
if Whitaker had his way is the beginning song to our musical.
Yes. Yes. If Whitaker had his way. We just made that up.
That was nice. There was a little harmony going there. That was nice.
He's going to find a way to spin this. The stampede's going to cause something. He'd be like, look, if my train was here, if I had my way.
Look, a nice heavy metal song is great for a stampede. That's what we'll need.
Yes, yes. What have you been thinking about? Sound effects, music?
I love your sound effects.
Yeah.
You do a great job.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm like, basically I have to listen through the story at least 3 or 4 times to make sure the timings on those things happen. And
Well, and what's difficult about I haven't done it, but what seems difficult about it is making the sound effects loud enough to hear, but not so loud that it drowns out the reader.
I was listening to kind of a radio drama lately, and they had that issue where there's so much sound effects going on. I really couldn't hear what people were saying.
Yeah, and
Which
I think some of our
it was an interesting story otherwise.
Yeah, and I know some of our earlier episodes had some of those issues where things.
But you've gotten better at it. You've gotten really good at it.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying putting that in there, but it's actually been difficult, and I'm surprised at this, but it's been difficult to find good dinosaur sound effects. I've had to pull from like other things that aren't.
Can you just sample off of
like
Lost World and Jurassic Park? Like, because that's on Netflix.
Those are the sounds I want, and I can't find those, and I'm going to maybe have to do that.
Put your iPhone up to the speakers.
Well, I've got my Tascam here, and because we watched Jurassic. Oh, I don't think I told you guys that we watched Jurassic Park with my kids the night before we went to go do the drive-through dinosaur thing. So it put the right level of fear and trepidation into our 3-year-old. He did not want to lean out the window.
Your 3-year-old watch Jurassic Park?
Yes.
Yeah. The water.
And so in the drive-through, you have an audio thing that goes along with it.
Okay.
And so we're listening to it, and one of the kind of first things they do is they have like that loud stomping, and when it happened, I think it triggered his memories of that, Jurassic Park, because he was like, what? And I think the thing that got him the most, and I know it, but the thing that got him the most was when the T-Rex, like, is breaking into the car, and he was like, it broke the car. And then we're in a car looking at dinosaurs, and he's realizing, like, we're not safe in this thing. But he finally, realized, okay, these are fake and whatever. But it was the right setting for setting the mood.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm old, so I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, but man, I wanted to see those movies so bad. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I finally saw Jurassic Park.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. Seeing the brachiosaurs was just
that first one.
That movie has held up.
Yeah.
Like,
so
as
good.
far as we've come with CGI, that movie has.
It has.
It's because like
they
the
use a lot of
T-Rex was
animatronics.
real.
Yeah.
That was a real thing that they made for it.
Yeah.
And you just can't replicate that in CGI.
No. Mm-mm. And that's the one positive that we've talked about. Not one, but one of the positives about the newer Star Wars movies is that they went back to more real
puppets.
effects. They went back to more costumes.
They did
models.
it with the Mandalorian.
Yes.
And the Mandalorian.
The little guy
Yeah.
was a puppet.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it works much better that way. And the first movie, in its own
Jurassic
respect,
Park or Star Wars?
Jurassic Park.
Okay.
The first Jurassic Park was definitely more of a suspense thriller,
Right.
whereas the second and third one were, and the newer ones are definitely more of like
Monster
An action
movie.
yeah, monster movie where people are just getting torn to bits. Like I covered his eyes in the 2 deaths where it got a little gruesome, but everything else was kind of like suspense.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That the raptors or
Yeah,
whatever
the
in the
velociraptor.
kitchen.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no
Even
one
as an
dies. There's
adult, I
no
was
bloody.
like-
Yeah. There's nothing bloody. There's no violence. It's all suspense and great camera angles and just building the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we hope that we're building tension within our story as well about our dinosaurs or saurians. I really like the word saurians.
I do
and I
too.
hope
Nice.
it's translating for you guys, our faithful listeners. But
Look, just to add this,
yeah.
I'm really glad that Katie has been involved in this season because I think
Mm-hmm.
the world building has gone up a notch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think we did a great job with the world building and the story for Singularity, but because of it was originally her idea anyway, and having her involved has really has really made the quality of the world building
Thank
where
you.
it needed to be.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
Been having a lot of fun with it.
And she gave me $20 to say that too, so I don't even.
I'm not supposed to tell anybody, Brent.
Oh, yeah.
And if you guys want to give us $20 for our writing,
I love
you
that.
can go
That
to our
was nice.
Patreon page
Nice.
and sign up for whatever level of patronage you would like to do. As always, we like to hear your thoughts and what you want to vote on to happen on our Instagram page, our Facebook page. And as always, faithful listeners, raise a glass to inspiration and stay inspired, guys.
So here's my story about Jurassic Park. I'm old, so I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
too.
And we're in the theater, and the first scene, the first guy that dies is
Yeah.
a black guy, and I was young and more bold and inappropriate, if you can imagine that back in those days. And I very loudly go, "Oh sure, kill the black guy first."
Right.
And the whole audience will start cracking up.
Gosh, so cliche already.